Is Shrapai, who's going to be talking about Milky Ways and Moonbows stargazing adventures in Kaua'i.
Thank you, Tom. I'm very excited to present tonight's topic because this was, a totally unexpected trip. So many riches of the natural world, both in terms of hiking and stargazing. And I know this is a great audience for this presentation. So to situate you, this talk is going to focus on some fun stargazing adventures in Kaua'i. And Kaua'i is located, it's part of the Hawaiian Islands. It is off in the Pacific Ocean here. You can see where it is relative to US and Canada, long flight to get there. For stargazing astronomy purposes, I just be aware it's 22 degrees north, and depending on what latitude you go to, you might have different objects visible in the night sky. The Milky Way may be in a different position as compared to what you expect to see in Toronto. And let's zoom in a little closer. So now we're looking at all the Hawaiian Islands, and you've got 4 major islands, and Kaua'i here, and it's the northernmost island. Now, this is, these events sort of happened during a vacation that we took during March of 2025. And usually, if you are interested in astronomy and astrophotography, vacation planning and looking at your astro apps go very much hand in hand. So of course, I pulled up a light pollution map of Kaua'i. Original reason we're going to Kaua'i is because of the marvelous hiking, right? All the things you do during the day. But what about the opportunities for visual astronomy and astrophotography? So this is a light pollution map of Kaua'i, and there is a website online which is very handy, and they have an app. So if you ever want to know how dark a place is that you're going to and how clear the night sky is going to be, this is usually a good indicator, although this map is about 10 years old. And the way to read this is that, the more vivid these colors are, the more light pollution there is. So on the left, you have an image of Kaua'i, and on the right, you have an image of Toronto, which is down here. Here's Lake Ontario, and here is the edge of the lake, and here you've got Toronto. And for reference, here's Algonquin Park up here, right? So much of Kaua'i, according to this 2015 map, especially in the northwest area, is very dark, so Bortle 2 skies. It's similar to Algonquin Park. And you've got some urban centers scattered along the southern shore. Okay. The other thing you'll look at if you're going on vacation is the moon phase, right? So I have another app for that, Photo Pills. And the Toronto District School Board, in its wisdom, chooses to have March break around the full moon. This is not the first time this has happened. So of course I'm looking at this, and Claudio just told you about all the lovely things you can see if there's no moon, right? So this was what we were facing. The moon was only going to get fuller as we got there, and it starts waning a little bit, and the yellow rectangle shows when we were going to be in Kaua'i. And this is sort of where you have the full moon, right? So I'm optimistic anyway, because I know jet lag happens. You can wake up at really early morning and the moon's about to set and things like that. So I take some things within reason. This is a family trip. So I have my regular DSLR camera with wide field and zoom lens for daytime photography. Crucially, I take my tripod, because if you're going to do night photography, you're going to do long exposures. You're not going to be able to do this handheld, right? Even on the some new iPhone models, you can do 10 seconds handheld. So if you want to try to get the Milky Way in night mode on some phones, you can, 10 seconds. But if you have a little selfie stick or tripod, you can go up to 30 seconds. Lots of fun. Take a dew heater, because it gets cold and you get condensation on your lens and you need a little battery to power it. I take the smallest portable star tracker I can think of taking, my little Star Adventurer Pro. And never underestimate the phone camera. This time I had another little fun toy that I took with me. And this is one of these smart telescope gadgets called the C-Star S50. Lots of fun, very portable. I've taken it on other hiking trips like to Zion National Park in Utah and stuff like that. So this was my gear we went with, okay? So the way we did our trip was we started out in this northwest area. I mean, our vibe is for family vacations is more raw, the more sort of away from civilization, the kind of we're drawn to that, right? So we started in the northwest section here in Kaua'i State Park, which is a rainforested area, lots of beautiful flora and fauna, lots of vegetation with native birds and things like that, right? So let's see what happened when we went there. So here is a view from, you have to go up this sort of, you leave civilization behind, you have to pack your groceries when you go there. It's like a half hour back if you want to go get groceries. And you go up this kind of windy mountain road, and there are all these canyons from previous volcanic activity formed. And you go up this windy road, and at the top, you've got the cabins, you've got a lookout. And here at the lookout, you are seeing the famed Napali coast of Kaua'i, right? It's just a very, very iconic view for Kaua'i. And this is the view we've got there. So a little orientation to understand my adventure in Kaua'i State Park. So as I said, there was this main road, and we were staying in these cabins, which I really recommend if you're into this kind of thing. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no cell phone reception, very nice cabin, furnished kitchen and everything, right? So we were like, I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to be without a cell phone for 3 days. Let's see. And very close to the cabin, right, within like 2 minutes drive, was this big clearing where there was the Kaua'i Museum, where you have some sort of little mini dioramas of the flora and fauna of the space and so forth, some hiking trails. What's important to note for astronomy is that if you're going into a rainforest, you have a lot of trees, you have a lot of canopy. And so you're not going to be able to see the sky and the stars if you go into one of these places over here with all the trees. For better or for worse, this area was clear. So if I went here, I got a nice view, 180 degrees plus all around for me to go look at. This place was beautifully dark. This is a photo I took out of the front door of our cabin at night, and there were no other external light sources. Because we were in the rainforest, it was kind of drizzling on and off pretty much all the time. And much to my dismay, there were clouds blowing by all in the sky all the time. So here you are in a Bortle 2 location during a full moon with clouds blowing by and rain, right? Sounds awful. Anyway, thanks to jet lag, my eyes opened around 4 o'clock one morning. And I've learned from previous experience that when that happens, you try to stick your head out of wherever you're staying and you look at the sky and you see amazing things. And so I decided to make a little jaunt in our car. I didn't drive. I took the car and I decided to go to the viewing lot next door. So I left this little note. My family knows to expect this. I said 4:30 a.m. gone to Kaua'i Lodge parking lot to see the stars. Be back by dawn. Okay. Now, the one thing that's important to note from a safety perspective is because you have to consider which location I was in, right? So I was in Kaua'i. So I looked up what are the largest animals that I can expect when I'm out at night. And luckily, the answer seemed to be, the largest animal is some feral pigs that were brought to the island by Polynesian ancestors a long time ago, and now they have just gone wild. And then there are lots and lots of chickens, jungle fowl everywhere. I mean, in the city, in the rainforest, you name it. If you go to Kaua'i themed stores, they sell merch with chickens on them, like on hats and stuff. And the other best part was there were no mosquitoes. There were no biting insects, which was amazing. Yeah, right? Yeah. So off I went, got out of here, took the car and went down here. And when I got there, the museum porch light was on. I was like, oh, this is just insult, to injury. This is the vibe. This is the wild animals of Kaua'i for you at 4:30 in the morning, right? You do what you need to, right? I know. We were warned about that when we were looking at the TripAdvisor reviews. So I got out of my car. Oh, yeah, I have to say, one of the reasons I really want to get out at Portal to Sky is because I wanted to see this phenomenon called the zodiacal light. It's this phenomenon where you see this kind of ghostly white triangular shape in the western horizon around sunset and the eastern horizon around sunrise. And you have to be in really dark skies to see it. And I needed it for my RASC imaging checklist, right? So I came here and I was like, I gotta try my luck, see zodiacal light. So I get out of the car in the parking lot and I look out and I see this, right? And I'm like, wow, it's zodiacal light. Or wait, is it, right? It looked really ghostly white to my eye, but it had this very distinctive arc-like shape, right? So I said, let's photograph it. This is my answer to everything, basically, right? So then what happened was I set my tripod up and then I took an image about 3.2 seconds and the camera saw what my eye couldn't. And that was that it was a rainbow. But it's a very unusual kind of rainbow because usually for rainbows, you need rainwater mist and you need sunlight, but the sun hadn't risen yet. In fact, the moon was right behind me. So this was not a rainbow. This was what I later came to know was a moonbow. At the time, I was like, oh, that's weird. This is just, it's just a rainbow at night. What's going on? You can see there's some stars there. And again, thanks to the bright porch lights of the museum, I got some very nice lighting on my foreground there, right? So later I went back and I looked up, what is this moonbow thing? I was like, oh, it's got a name. It's called a moonbow. So it's made just like a regular rainbow is, which a regular rainbow is generated when light goes through water droplets and goes through a process of reflection and refraction as shown over there. And it separates out into its constituent bands of color, right? But moonbows are much, much rarer because moonlight is way dimmer than sunlight. So moonlight, I just looked it up. I found some numbers there through various sources. And moonlight can be roughly 1 million times dimmer than sunlight, which means if you have to see a rainbow created by moonlight, you better be in a very, very dark sky. The other thing you need is you need a nearly full moon because it better be as bright as it possibly can be. And the third condition you need, I learned, was that the light needed to be only within a certain distance from the horizon. So it's perfect for a jet-lagged person in a rainforest, a near full moon in the rain, which it was raining. I don't know if you heard it over the roosters in that video, but it was actually raining and misting the whole time. This is how badly I want to see zodiacal light, apparently, right? So I went and I looked around a bit more, like, where do you find these moonbow things, right? And it turns out that anywhere you have big mists, and you have dark skies, and of course, the full moon, you're going to be likely to see moonbows. So that would be huge waterfalls, such as the Victoria Falls in Zambia. Yosemite actually advertises moonbows on their website. It's like, come to Yosemite and see a moonbow. Cloud forests of Costa Rica. And then I found one from New Zealand, which also has very dark skies. Okay. Interestingly, the Wikipedia article I was reading said, oh, big waterfalls such as Niagara Falls. And I was like, really? You're going to see moonbows in Niagara Falls? The other thing I learned is moonbows was so rare. When I went to my astrophotography community and I posted my moonbow pictures, I had friends who had been astronomers for decades who were like, I've never seen this. And clearly, if it would have been Niagara Falls, people would have seen this and gone to see it, right? So it turns out that, at least from some digging around online, the Niagara Falls used to have moonbows, but thanks to all the light pollution we have, if you've ever been to the area around Niagara Falls, you know what I'm talking about. These are much rarer, okay? And that's like an op-ed from our opinion piece in Toronto Star. Oh yeah, and so here we were with the moonbow and the setting sun was behind the camera. The other thing I got a double moonbow, right? You got the single rainbow here. Can you see my cursor? Oh, you can't see my cursor. Here, I've been moving my cursor all this time. So you get the what I hope you can see is that there's two rainbows. One's a brighter one, and then there's a dimmer one, and you can see the stars of Scorpius nearby, right? So again, this is formed exactly the way a regular rainbow is. Instead of having a single internal reflection, so in the primary bow section, you can see that the white light's going into the droplet and is reflecting once. For a double rainbow, it gets reflected twice. And the cool thing that happens is that the colors are flipped. So now you can see, I don't know how clear it is for you to see here, but you can see that for the primary rainbow, the colors start out being on the blue side and go through the yellows and greens and end up being red towards the top. But in the secondary rainbow, it starts out being red and goes all the way to being blue, which was kind of neat. And then a friend of mine told me that there's a dark band in between. It's visibly dark, and it's called Alexander's dark band. So now we've got some names. And then, last gasp of the galactic core. I was busy, like, what do I take pictures of? Oh, let's take pictures of the rainbow. Let's take pictures of this. And then suddenly the galactic core, despite what my PhotoPills app said, hung around till 5:49 a.m. and I was able to catch it. And those of you familiar with seeing it, at our latitudes will recognize some of the prominent features on there. I had some other adventures on my way back to the cabin where there was a bit of a storm and a tree fell on the road. And maybe I can tell you guys about that another time. Did I mention there was no cell phone service? The second sort of unexpected fun thing happened when we went to visit this place called Polihale State Beach. Another place I recommend astronomers check out if you're going there. It's located on the western coast of Kaua'i, which will become relevant shortly. And it's supposed to have some spiritual significance as well to indigenous Hawaiians, because they believe that the soul spiritual journey starts at Polihale Beach, right? You are allowed to camp there overnight if you get a camping permit, and they're beautiful dark skies with sort of miles to look around. And I wish we had had dark skies. So we went there to just check it out and hang out during sunset. And here are some pictures. That's where the Napoli coast starts, and you've got the dunes and everything. But then I had my stellarium on me, or I looked on some astroforum, and people said, hey, Mercury and Venus are going to be next to each other tonight. So we had something else fun to do while waiting on the beautiful beach. And sure enough, as we were hanging out and we start to see dusk falling, we started to notice, again, I'm doing it with the cursor, but I hope, can you guys see the two dots up there? Don't worry, there's going to be a close-up in a sec. But there's a brighter dot, and there's a less bright dot to its left from where you're sitting. And the bright dot is Venus, and the bright dot to its left is Mercury. And remember, I told you Polihale State Beach is on the western coast of Kaua'i. So we had just seen the sun go down, and it's the perfect place, perfect part of the sky to keep looking at if you want to see Mercury and Venus. And here is a zoomed in view of Mercury and Venus, and basically hung around there for 30 minutes trying to take just the right picture of this with the ocean waves and so forth. And again, if you just want to, go and confirm, you can either use a stellarium. It's a great app. Claudio had brought it up in his talk earlier to show you, to help you explore where in the sky objects of interest are going to be. And it's great because you can set, your place on Earth, and you can set your date and time. So I actually took the screenshot yesterday, and I said, set the location to be, somewhere in Hawaii, and set it to the date and time, and it shows it to you. So very handy tool, and there's like a phone app too, so you can just have it when you're traveling. And then we just sort of hung out. I'm pretty sure it's not that evident here, but even with a near full moon, the stars were so visible and beautiful. And all I could think of was, oh my goodness, can we keep staying here till moonset? But we couldn't because we had to go back to the cabins in the rainforest. But next time, if we ever go back, I'd like to sort of get a camping permit and stay here. And the third thing, of course, was a big thing that everybody was interested in around March break. And that was the total lunar eclipse we had, right? So for that, we decided to. So a thing to point out is that in Toronto, the total lunar eclipse was in the dead of night. It was somewhere between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning, right? But I think we were like 6 hours behind. So for us, partial eclipse started around 7:30ish, and the total lunar eclipse was around 8:30ish, and then back to partial eclipse around 9:30ish. So dinner picnic, right, with the family, which turned out very nicely. So for this, we went along this beach, the set of beaches on the southern coast, which are lovely. And at the very south, there's the Poipu Beach, which is famous for the Hawaiian sea turtles that come out there every night to hang out. And it's just quite a sight. There's like a group of volunteers that comes in and just sort of keeps all the tourists at bay. And they have all these cones. You can see some of them. And the turtles, sometimes they're there during the day. Sometimes they'll just like swim up even as you're watching. And if you're snorkeling in the water, they'll like swim by you. So anyway, we went to a beach nearby Poipu for a little darker sky. And we just hung out and, started taking pictures. Sadly for us, we started having a lot of clouds go through during the eclipse. So, you can plan everything and then the clouds can come in, right? So, of course, because Murphy's Law, everything was perfectly clear through the partial eclipse. And then it was only around total eclipse that things started getting very kind of cloudy. So here is a picture of I don't know if you can see it from the size. I wanted to show you the partial eclipse with the beautiful ocean view and stuff. But you can see that the moon seems to have a little chunk taken out of it. Can you see that? The bottom right? It looks like somebody just cut the bottom corner of it. Well, let's see. Yeah, there's a tiny slice at the bottom. Maybe I can show it to you after or share it in some way. Or you could also look it up, images of partial eclipse, right? So, but we got totality and the clouds were going by and I was like, oh, you are looking over the Pacific Ocean, the Milky Way is right there. The total lunar eclipse is right there and you have all these clouds. And I could see Orion in the sky. And I said, let's just take a wide angle picture. And it is what it is. So this is the wide angle image. So for this, I took a DSLR camera with an extremely wide angle fisheye. So this is at least 140 degrees view or wider. And very, very kind of fast lens, means it sucks in a lot of light. And what you can see here is the moon on the left, that teeny tiny glowing disk on the left is actually the eclipsed moon. And the point of it isn't just the eclipsed moon. The point of it is the sky with the eclipsed moon in context, right? So now you've got the moon, it's eclipsed, and that's why I can take a 13-second exposure with an f1.8. And on the right, you see a band of stars. Do you guys see that? Do you see the band of stars going up? And that's the Milky Way. I think I've got an annotated version coming up in a couple of slides. So I just wanted to oftentimes when we do these lunar eclipse images, we can either do the zoomed in view or the kind of composite, over time. This was my attempt at something, I don't know. And then again, towards the tail end of the eclipse, I was able to get a nice zoomed in view of the moon. And the other thing is, if you're by the ocean, it's very windy. And so there were times when I was just holding my tripod and I was like, gotta get that ocean shot with the moon. Photographers. Anyway, so this was in a quieter spot and there was partial eclipse. And so you can see that part of the moon is orange, but part of it is white again. Right, so this is at the tail end of that. Oh, I don't have an annotated version. So I will go back here and point out that if you haven't noticed before, you can see Orion at the top right of the image. All right, so you can see Orion's belt, which is so if you guys see the top right of the image, you can see Orion's belt, which is a set of 3 stars going up, 1, 2, 3. And then you can see his sword, and then you can see his 2 kind of feet stars. So it's kind of a different way of looking at it. Yeah. So with that, I want to conclude the stargazing sort of travelogue and say that, here I started out thinking, you're going to this dark place during the full moon, and who knows, and I didn't even really take out my hardcore astro imaging gear for any of the photos. They said some of them, they just sort of like, you look on your app and you're like, what's happening over here? Oh, Mercury, Venus. And you just go enjoy it. I mean, the lunar eclipse was a bonus, right? And it was nice to be able to see it. But the moonbow was like so unexpected. And, sometimes when you're like, oh, what am I going to see? There's full moon, there's rain, and there's a dark sky. Well, you never know. You might see something completely unexpected like a moonbow. So it's sometimes you go and it's a miss, you don't see anything, but sometimes there's serendipity and you're gifted with something really beautiful. Yeah. And with that, I will wrap up and take any questions. Thank you.
Yes. We already got one question.
All right. We'll wait for the mic so the folks at home can hear you.
Were these chickens from more Polynesian ancestors, or are these from colonizers or indigenous Hawaiian people? Like, what happened? Why are there so many chickens all over Hawaii?
I think humans did bring them.
Invasive species?
Humans did bring them. My guess is in different waves, because there's a mix of domestic and what's called jungle fowl, right? And so I think people just brought them over time and they've just interbred, and they have different areas where you have different types of chickens. Yeah. I had a photo of a chicken crossing a road that I was going to put up for some pondering, but I was like, you have too many slides, cut it down. Yeah.